cause of death in the African American community? Well, the answer is abortion. That's right. Since 1973, over 14 million black babies have been aborted. The second leading cause of death in the African American community is cancer, which has affected 2 million black Americans since '73. The staggering difference between these two numbers is absolutely appalling. Today, Students for Life of Illinois wants to illuminate the truths highlighted by our Stop Killing the Dream campaign. It's no coincidence that the theme, Stop Killing the Dream, reminds us of Dr. Martin Luther King's historic I Have a Dream speech. He envisioned how all people would be united and would look at one another regardless of the color of their skin and recognize that each person is worthy of respect and love. In honor of Black History Month, we celebrate the great accomplishments of the African American community and the triumphs over the struggles of slavery and racism. The Black community has faced many evils. Slavery is a tremendous wound and racism an ongoing battle. Yet, abortion is the greatest evil that's attacking the Black community. It's an evil silenced among hurt women and lost fathers. It's an evil that hides behind closed doors. SFLI remembers Black History Month by making you aware of the devastating effects of abortion and asking you to help stop the dream from being killed. Since abortion is the leading cause of death among the African American community, 14 million black babies have been killed since abortion was legalized in 1973. That's 14 million dreams destroyed. Listen to these numbers. Every day, 1,500 black babies are killed by abortion. About 12% of the U.S. population is African American, but 1/3 of abortions are performed on black women. 78% of Planned Parenthood facilities, America's #1 abortion provider, are located in minority communities. Abortion affects African Americans so significantly that their population is decreasing rather than increasing. With these statistics, we ask, how did abortion reach and devastate the black community? Well, it started with slavery in the U.S. Slavery was a grave form of dehumanization. We can't be ignorant of the fact that some slaves were treated well and some were not treated well, but all slaves were considered cheap labor. The slaves became mere instruments for Southern slave owners, and their contribution to the economic prosperity of the country justified the institution of slavery. The slaves' human dignity was being violated as they were cast to the bottom of the social order. The tolerance of slavery in the U.S. reveals how people, not only slave owners, but all Americans who stood by silently, dehumanized them. This was most apparent in the 1857 Supreme Court decision, Dred Scott v. Sanford, which essentially denied the personhood of Dred Scott, an African American slave. After the end of slavery, these newly freed men and women had to dig out of the deep hole that slavery had buried them in. Between 1882 and 1963, 3,500 black Americans were lynched because they were viewed as less than human. Isn't dehumanization the mentality of the pro-abortionists toward another group of humans, the unborn? In 1973, the Supreme Court decision Roe v. Wade essentially denied the personhood of the unborn child, just like the personhood of Dred Scott was denied in 1857. The dehumanization of African Americans persisted long after the end of slavery through racism and particularly through the work of Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. She's praised by modern society and feminists for fighting for women's sexual freedom. But disturbingly, the basis and the foundation of Planned Parenthood is eugenics. Eugenics is a social philosophy that advocates for the improvement of the human race by breeding people with good and desirable traits. Nazism was also based on eugenics. The Nazi search for the master race was deeply rooted in the same philosophy of eugenics, just like Planned Parenthood. People considered unfit have to be eliminated for the betterment of society. Hitler used gas chambers and concentration camps, while here in the United States, Margaret Sanger used birth control, sterilization, and abortion. The mentally challenged, the disabled, the delinquents people with disease, and Black Americans were considered unfit by Sanger. Planned Parenthood denies Margaret Sanger's racism and sympathy for eugenics, yet Sanger's own words prove otherwise. On December 19, 1939, she wrote to a colleague, quote, "We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population," end quote. In 1929, the Negro Project was launched to carry out her secret agenda. The project provided birth control and sterilization services to blacks. Sanger also wrote, quote, "Colored people are human weeds and are to be exterminated," end quote. She hid her true intentions by having preachers, professionals, and academics from the Black community advocate for the Planned Parenthood agenda. Today, Sanger's legacy lives on through the deaths of over 14 million aborted African American babies. A new civil rights movement has risen to protect the right to life of the unborn. Dr. Martin Luther King's dream can't be fulfilled if the children are not allowed to live. It's important to change the hearts and minds on campus, in our cities, states, country, and the entire world by helping people recognize the dignity and sanctity of human life. If we don't speak out now, the dream will not survive. Learn more about abortion's impact on the Black community at www.stopkillingthedream.com. That's www.stopkillingthedream.com. Remember, with our voices united, we can make a difference. We can keep the dream alive. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, this is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to open the doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now is the time.